In my mission to teach the Cypher system to as many people as possible, I want to talk about, to my opinion, the one feature of the Cypher system that differentiates the game the most from RPGs like 5th edition and Pathfinder, and those are the monsters. Because the monsters, including their stat blocks and everything, are written in a much more narrative way, and everything that is on the paper is actually there in order for you to tell a story using the monsters you're pitting against your players. So without further ado, let's look at how monsters work for the Cypher system. Hi there fellow roleplayers and game masters, my name is Mr. Tarask and this is your go-to YouTube channel for everything Cypher system. And today I want to talk about the monsters of the Cypher system, and I want to do two things in this video. First of all, I want to talk about three different monsters, one from the Cypher System Core rulebook, the other one from the Godforsaken book, so that will be a more of a fantasy monster, and then the third one from the 9th World Bestiary. And I will be going over the stat blocks and everything the monster has, just to show you how easy it is to interpret, how easy it is to use everything that is put on paper in order to tell a story, in order to drive the plot forward, and how they made choices to make the monster more of a narrative tool than actually just hitting a bunch of hit points and hoping it will die. After that, I want to talk about two monsters that I am in the process of converting from 5th edition all the way to the Cypher system from my Isle of the Dreaded Accursed adventure, which is a 5th edition adventure that I've written, and I'm doing a crowdfunding campaign in order to convert this fully into the Cypher system. And I already started working on it, creating some stat blocks for monsters that are in here, but for the Cypher system, just to show you how easy it is to convert, firstly, and how the monster kind of changes from a bunch of stats into a narrative tool. Quickly, before we do that, I want to offer you 33% off of your next white book from Monte Cook Games. The white books from Monte Cook Games are a bunch of genre books that you can use together with the Cypher system to create your ultimate RPG. Now, if you become one of the first 50 backers of my crowdfunding campaign, link in the description below, you will get a coupon for $5 off your next PDF white book, or $15 off your next white book physical copy, which is a really cool extra you can grab on top of supporting me and on top of getting Isle of the Dreaded Accursed, a full-fledged adventure for the Cypher system. So without further ado, let's talk about the first stat block of the day, which is the Deinonychus, which is the Raptor from Jurassic Park, which it also isn't, because the Velociraptor from Jurassic Park was actually another dinosaur that lived many millions of years ago, but they based the looks of that Velociraptor, so they took the name of the Velociraptor, but the looks of the Deinonychus, and slapped that together to create the Velociraptor from Jurassic Park, so they got it completely wrong, which is okay because it is a movie. This is a stat block in the Cypher system. As a matter of fact, this is even bigger than a stat block in the Cypher system, because all you really need, in essence, is this. If you have this, you can run a monster against your players. Now, running only monsters that have only this will get boring after a while, but it's perfect for having those monsters. I always use the example of people just running through a spaceship and all kinds of like low ball aliens are popping up and they're throwing grenades and stabbing them and shooting them and trying to make their way through a escape pod or something like that. Then you have enough for this, as long as you're not running a boss encounter or whatever. So I want to kind of show you how a stat block is read and how you use it, and how these things are all more narrative things than they are a bunch of hit points. Now, as you can see, a stat block in the Cypher system doesn't really have stats. The only, like, it's no strength, no dexterity, no intelligence, no wisdom, no charisma, nothing. So you might be asking yourself, then how do my players know how to do this? And how do my players know how to convince it to follow them, or how to not attack them, or how to talk to the NPC or whatever? It's all right here. This is the most important number. This creature is level 3, which means in the Cypher system, if you don't know how the Cypher system works, make sure to watch my 5-minute tutorial video on it. I will pop it up right here somewhere, because that will teach you how it basically works. But how it works is you multiply this by 3, and it is a, whoa, crap, it is a 9. You have to roll on your d20 in order to hit this creature. So if you attack it with whatever you want to attack it with, you have to roll a 9 on your d20. already. So without using any special abilities, it is roughly a 50-50% chance in order to be able to hit this creature when you try to hit it. All other stuff right here, there is a lot of like a fluff about it, what it does and how it thinks. There is a very short and quick motive that these stat blocks have: hungers for flesh, which a Velociraptor or a Deinonychus does. An environment wherever they can hunt food in packs of 3 to 7. I don't want to encounter 7 of these. They have 15 health points, so if you inflict 15 damage to them, they die. They inflict 4 points of damage, so if they attack you, they deal 4 points of damage. In the Cypher system, all damage is static, and you don't have to roll a die. As a matter of fact, as a game master, you never roll a die, but it is static damage, so they deal 4 points of damage. And they have 1 armor, which means if you do particular kinds of attacks which are not based on intellect or whatever, they deduct 1 from the damage taken by your sword or your gun or whatever. Now, their movement is short, which I don't really agree with, because raptors tend to be really fast creatures. They could run like really, really fast. So I would have them like run a little bit faster. And that is a stat block. All you need, if players want to, for example, attack it, they need to roll a 9. If they want to convince it to follow them, basically they have to roll a 9 if you wouldn't have all this other information. Then come the modifications. So this is what ties in with that 5th edition stat block where you have the wisdom and the intelligence and the dexterity. This has just a base thing, and then it has modifications. So this one has a perception as if it was level 5. That's how it works. It's basically that. So level 5 times 3 is 15. So in order to hide from it, and it will be able, it's going to try to spot you, you will have to roll a hide check or whatever you want to call it of 15. If you don't roll that, you are not able to hide it, because this percepts you as if it is level 5, which is times 3 a 15. Same with attacks and speed defense as level 4. So this thing actually attacks as level 4, which means if you have to roll a defense check against it, so it attacks you with a bite attack or whatever, and it rolls and you roll speed defense roll against it, you need to roll 4 times 3 is 12, which is of course higher than the 9 right here, due to its quickness, right? So overcoming obstacles and figuring out tricks as level 4, same thing. And then they go into the combat. When a Deinonychus bites its prey, the victim takes damage and must make a might defense roll. Again, a might defense roll. It doesn't say a number. It doesn't say DC XXX. No, it says a might defense roll. And since there is no number, it's just going to be a 9, which is right here. It's going to be the flat 9, which is right here. On a failure, the Deinonychus holds the victim in place with its jaw while it slices them to ribbons with its terrible claws. Or the other way around would also be cool. Automatically inflicting 6 points of damage each round in which they fail a might-based task to break free. Not attempting to break free counts as a failed attempt. For a human-sized or smaller victim held in the jaws, all other tasks are hindered by 2 steps. So what this basically means is it attacks you and it hits you. It deals 4 points of damage. Bam. Then you roll a might check. And you fail. It deals another 6 points of damage, which is 10 points of damage, which is a heck of a lot of damage. Now, the roll isn't that hard, so you're not going to take that damage that often if you do the right things in the Cypher system. But if you take the damage, 10 points of damage is a lot in the Cypher system. And then if you remain in the claws or in the jaw of this creature, you basically keep taking damage, and all your other actions are hindered 2 steps. So if you don't know what hindered means, it's basically everything you do becomes more difficult. I explained it in my other video, but basically you have a way to hinder rolls where normally a roll would be like a level 4 difficulty. If it hinders 2 steps, it becomes a level 6 difficulty, which is a 6 times 3, 18 to roll instead of a 12. That's basically how it works. So, and then there is a use section. For example, they talk about like kind of like the Jurassic Park thing where the dinosaurs run through a local mall or something like that and eat the arms of people and also break into the fridge fridges. And then there is a very important thing that might be one of the most important things storytelling wise for the Cypher system, and that is the GM intrusion. So if somebody rolls a natural 1 on their die, you as a game master get an intrusion, and you can come up with your own intrusion. You can make that up on the fly. There's rolling tables for it, there is help for it in the books everywhere, but also each monster gets at least 1 GM intrusion. For example, the fleeing Deinonychus was actually leading the character over a cliff into a deadly trap or onto an ambush with more Deinonychus. So, for example, a deadfall trap. So, for example, the dinosaur is actually leading you to a pit, and then you're running after it because you think it's almost dead and you want to kill it because you don't want it to kill other people or whatever, being the hero, but then you fall into a pit. Of course, you need to make a speed check in order to not fall in the pit, but that is a GM intrusion. It's always like the situation kind of changes because you rolled a natural 1, but of course, we're not assholes, so we can still give you that chance to recover from it, but it's more a tool to have more a narrative approach to getting attacked or attacking a group of Deinonychus than it is just a bunch of hit points and a bunch of spells that come at you and you do the same to them. Let's look at a more typical fantasy creature from the Godforsaken white book by Monte Cook Games, which is right there, by the way, and it is a book with all kinds of options for players and game masters to run a fantasy game for the Cypher system. Now, I'm using this one because I actually had a TPK, one of very few TPKs I've ever had as a game master from a water elemental in 5th edition this weekend. I'm so sorry, guys. You guys should have just taken your ship and ran for it, but yeah, you decided to stay and fight and you died. That's basically what happened. So I'm not going to go into the same depth as I did with the Raptors, the Deinonychus, but basically, it's the same thing. This one is a level 4 creature, which makes it harder to hit. The first one was roughly a 50% chance to hit, and this is more like between 45 and 50% chance to hit or something like that. I don't know. Water elementals are animate masses of water. When swimming, they are nearly indistinguishable from their surroundings, but when they have to move on dry land, they usually take the form of a curling wave or a large puddle. Bloody that we all know and love water elementals, right? So it's the same thing. Basically, what I said is, if you want to run a basic creature, this is like the essence of it. But then there are the modifications, and as you can see, it doesn't have strength, dex, intelligence, wisdom. No, it just has modifications. It's a level 4 creature, so you need to roll a 12 to hit it. But swimming and aquatic maneuvers as level 6. So if it swims or whatever, it's a level 6. If it does stealth, so if somebody is going to try to spot it with a perception check or whatever you want to call it in the Cypher system, they need to roll an 18 because 6 times 3 is an 18 as long as it is in the water. So this is how that works for the Cypher system. Water elementals bash opponents with heavy limbs of water or spray jets of water out to short range. Instead of bashing attack, a water elemental can use it. So it has 24 hit points. So as you can see, the hit points are much lower in a Cypher system. So that's why I said earlier that getting 10 damage from something is really, it's a lot. But it also does 4 points of damage, and this one has no armor, as you can see. So if you attack it, it won't deduct any armor if you attack it with like a gun or with your sword or whatever. Let's see. Instead of a bashing attack, a water elemental can use its action to attempt to envelop, smother, and crush one opponent who can resist with a might defense roll. If the opponent fails, it takes 4 points of damage. So again, a might defense roll, since there is no number what the difficulty class of that is, it is a 4, so it is a 12. So a little less than 50% chance to actually fail it. Each following turn, it takes, by the way, 4 points of damage immediately, and every round on the elemental's turn, they can each following turn, the enveloped character must attempt a new might defense roll every round or move 1 step down the damage track from drowning as the elemental forces itself into the creature's lungs. In the Cypher system, you have something that's called the damage track, which has like a few steps. The bottom step is death. and the top stat is like feeling really good. So you get like downsides from getting hurt, and instead of you getting damage from this, or like on top of getting damage from this, you also move down the damage track, which is really, so this is a really, really dangerous creature, because if you fail the mind checks 3 times in a turn after each other, you might find yourself to be screwed. Water elementals are somewhat intelligent, but think very different from humans, so they often seem distracted and dull. They are generally compliant when summoned with magic, but there is about 5% chance that they break free of the spell and lash out against their summoner. So this is a stat block. That's it. There is again a GM intrusion. The force of the elemental's attack knocks over a character, sweeps them a short distance away, or both. So every character, again, if they roll a natural 1 on their die, you get a GM intrusion. You can come up with all kinds of different stuff. For example, if they're fighting from on top of a mast of a ship, the mast could break. If they are in the water, I don't know, swimming, they might be hit by just a random wave that comes in, because that happens in the sea, right? And be hit by that and start drowning. All kinds of stuff you can come up with within the situation that you're in the game, but there's always, in a stat block, there's always at least one example for you to use when you're running this monster against your players. And then really quickly, I want to talk about the first creature actually in the 9th world, Bestiary. The 9th world is actually the campaign setting of Numenera, which is a campaign setting by Monte Cook Games. And there is, by the way, affiliate links in the descriptions for description for all of these books, which get me a little bit of money if you decide to pick up a PDF or a physical copy from the Monte Cook Games store. So I really appreciate it if you, before buying anything from Monte Cook Games, click that affiliate link, because it supports me and it helps keeps the channel moving forward. The Accelerator are an artificial intelligences encased in metal shells with numerous limbs, sensory devices, and other accoutrements that allow them to interact with and understand the world around them. So it's basically AI in a shell. That would be should be the title of a book. AI in a shell. It's like Ghost in a Shell, right? So they are a level 6 creature. So as you can see, it becomes much more difficult to hit. As a matter of fact, if you just roll a naked d20, you will almost never hit it, because it is an 18. So only 2 times in 3 times in the 20, you will hit it, otherwise you won't hit it. So its motive is proactive and self-defense. Environment could be anywhere, it's more sci-fi, it has 30 health points, which is a lot. It also deals 7 points of damage. Armor 4, so if you hit it with a gun or a sword or a freaking lightsaber, it will deduct 4 points from your freaking damage, which is a lot. Its movement is long, which I can really see. By the way, this is I really like this right here for like the size comparison. It is in the 9th world Bestiary. I really like it how I compare it, like it's this big, right? It's War of the Worlds kind of big. No, it's not that big, but it's big. Modifications perceives as level 8. So if you try to hide from it, it will be a very difficult check, because you need to roll 8 times 3. And this is where it gets a little bit difficult, because it becomes 8, 16, 24 to roll on a d20. Which is impossible. You can't roll a 24 or a 20. So if you want to hide from it, you're going to have to use your skills. You're going to have to use your XP, or you're going to have to use your effort in order to be able to be really good at hiding for just a moment, just to be able to hide from an accelerator. So that's really good. Speed defense as level 5 due to its size. Accelerators can defend themselves with a number of blade-like bandages, attacking up to 3 foes in a single action. So they can attack 3 times. And it is the same thing again. So they can attack 3 times in a single action. Additionally, they can alter the acceleration of up to 3 different creatures or objects within immediate range, from halting a moving object to causing the object to suddenly move rapidly with force. This power can be used in a variety of ways. They can hurl a heavy object, 7 points of damage, hurl a light object, 5 points of damage, or hurl a foe away from them up to short range, which also does 7 points of damage. So that is how a stat block, like I want just to quickly cover this just to show you that there's fantasy creatures, there's Jurassic Park creatures, there's sci-fi creatures, there's everything in between. There's even books that go on about like more realistic setting with witchcraft and all of that jazz, historic London, everything works for the Cypher system, and it is really easy to just take a stat block and start running it against your players. The last thing I want to do is talk about the Skeletal Dragon, or like Joshua Perry likes to say, the Skeletal Dragon from Isle of the Dreaded Accursed, originally from the Dreaded Accursed Bestiary by Nord Games, that is in Isle of the Dreaded Accursed, my adventure that I want to convert to the Cypher system. That is if my crowdfunding campaign succeeds. So if you want to be a part of that, if you want to help out, make this thing a reality for the Cypher system, make sure to click the link in the description below. And as you can see, this is the 5th edition stat block right here, which is almost pure math. That is what it is. And I'm not like dissing 5th edition at all. 5th edition is a really solid system, but it is more math oriented. So it's more, everything is like 18,000 experience points. There's a proficiency bonus. There is dex, strength, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, charisma. There is hit points, and then how you got those hit points and all of that stuff. We all know and love from 5th edition. Then if you look at the difference to the Skeletal Dragon for the Cypher system, you see that it is way more narrative driven. Now, really important, I need to thank Quedup, or how do you want to pronounce it, who is a buddy of mine, a YouTuber who has a almost purely Cypher system YouTube channel. Well, it's not almost pure. He has a lot of Cypher system content on his YouTube channel. He knows a lot about the system, and he really, really helped me out with this. As a matter of fact, he did most of the work on this, just like to teach me how to do it, right? And the first thing that you need to ask yourself when you do a stat block for the Cypher system, you need to ask yourself, like, what level do you want to give it? And for me, it was a matter of this encounter. This Skeletal Dragon is built for the adventure, and hitting the Skeletal Dragon and trying to kill it is not the main objective of the encounter. The main objective of the encounter is actually keeping it busy while somebody else does a thing, right? So, I made it level 8, which is really hard to hit. Technically, theoretically, if you just swing your sword without any particular set of skills, or without spending experience point, or without spending effort, you will not hit it, because rolling a d20, the maximum number you can roll is, of course, 20. So you need to spend effort, and the players will very quickly find out that it is really hard to hit, and then they might start thinking like, what other stuff can we do in order to defeat this Skeletal Dragon? I don't want to spoil the adventure for you, so that's all I'm going to say about that. So as you can see, it is level 8, which is 24 to hit, but it has a perception, due to its keen magical senses, it has a perception of level 9, which is much higher, of course, which is a 27 to roll if you want to hide from it. So hiding from it is really, really hard, and this is just normally in a 5th edition stat block, it just says perception plus XXX, and here it is just one of those things that is different from the level, right? Like I said earlier in the video, what I also did is like speed defense. If it rolls a speed defense roll, which is like from ranged attacks and melee attacks, it is level 7 due to its size. I always like high level creatures who are really big. I want them to be dangerous, but at the same time, it isn't really hard to hit a freaking elephant with a bow and an arrow if you're proficient with bow and arrow, right? An elephant is really big. This is even bigger, so it's a little bit easier to hit. So a level 7 to hit, which is only a 21 to hit. So you're going to need to use less effort and less experience points in order to be able to hit it, but it's still pretty hard to hit. So it's poison immunity, skeletal appearance. It can be affected by any sort of poison, all of that jazz. Let's see what else we got in here. And yeah, we made the difference between bite, claw attack, which isn't necessary per se in the Cypher system, because earlier we talked about the Raptor dinosaur who had just an attack, just the amount of damage it dealt per turn, right? But you could narrate that as a game master for being like claw damage, bite damage, a combination of the two. It kicks you, it hits you with its tail, whatever it wants to do, it just does that amount of damage, and you can narrate it differently as a game master. So I might have this just not be in there even. Like the bite and the claw doesn't necessarily have to be in here because the damage is just 10 if it attacks you. Like they say, the Skeletal Dragon can bite one target with a base damage of 10, which is just what it says right here, damage of 10. When successfully bitten, targets are also immobilized and held by the Skeletal Dragon until they succeed on a might defense roll to break free. So that is what it does extra, right? But you can just, it's enough to just only say this stuff. So I'm still working out how I wanna go about that. There's the claw attack thing. The Skeletal Dragon can strike a single target up to a short distance away with a base damage of 10. A single action, the Skeletal Dragon can attack 2 targets within immediate range with a base damage of 10. And then there's the tail, which is not in bold, which I forgot to put in bold letters. There is, of course, the necrotic breath, and then there was some stuff about interaction and some cool artwork that I have from the adventure, which is the encounter. By the way, you need to put this on there in order to kill the Skeletal Dragon. Spoiler alert, wait, that was too late. The Skeletal Dragon exhales supernatural energies of death and decay. It chooses a spot within short range. Cypher just has a few ranges. It doesn't do like the 5, the 10, the 15, and affects all targets within an immediate area, dealing 7 damage to all within the area, bypassing any armor that is not completely sealed to environmental effects. Targets who succeed on a speed defense roll to avoid the full effect still take 3 points, so half damage. This ability cannot be used in consecutive rounds. If a creature is killed by a necrotic breath, it is brought back as a wraith, which is in Godforsaken page 131, under the Skeletal Dragon's control. So normally, I think by now the Wraith should be open gaming thing, which you can just find on the internet. But I will, of course, make sure once the stuff releases that I have a creature here that you can actually use and don't have to buy a separate book for. So that is just a quick idea of how I'm converting like creatures. I'm also converting the Titanic Sea Spider from in the beginning of the adventure. There's just this Titanic Sea Spider that completely destroys a harbor and the players are fighting it. And then in the end of the adventure, there's the Skeletal Dragon, and you can see it is more of a narrative thing. Everything is more narratively driven than the pure math that 5th edition has. And that's it. That is in a nutshell how monsters work. I also want to do a video where I just take an ID, random IDs for monsters, and just create monsters from scratch. So if you have an ID for a monster, just a basic monster, maybe it's just like a monster that exists in 5th edition and you want to see in Cypher System or whatever, I will just sit down and start creating some of those, maybe even in a live stream. So make sure to put that in the comments below if you want to see that or what you want to see. If you have any questions about monsters, any questions about the books I covered today, make sure to put that in the comments below. Hit the thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, click my affiliate links, and until next video, bye bye.